Hello everybody, this is Brian O'Haron. This is the February 15th edition of Planning for Success. And I'm going to make a few comments now. I'll go over the agenda with you. Number one, we're going to have roughly 10 minutes of comments, maybe a little less if I can get it down from that. Then I'm going to tell you who the councilmen are from Torrington, Connecticut. There are 6 councilmen and a mayor. Torrington has a mayoral form of government. I've been studying that. I've immersed myself in the Torrington approach here lately in the last few weeks because I'm on the Charter Revision Commission, and as a citizen, as an individual, I am studying this and producing papers that I distribute to the other commission members. These are my own comments tonight, and always will be until I tell you they're not, and until I tell you they're official. So I'll be telling you who the councilman and the mayor are. Then I'll be talking about the Torrington City Council agenda for their February 4th, 2008 meeting that I attended. And you're going to find a fantastic meeting here. Very good example, perfect example of how to run a meeting and how to prepare for a meeting and how to attend a meeting. And that'll last probably about 15 minutes. And then we'll go into the audio tape of that meeting. They don't tape their meetings because they're not on television in Torrington. I personally think that might be an advantage for them. But they're not on television, and they do make an audio tape of every meeting from which they take and make the minutes of and everything. So it's on record down there. Anybody can go down and listen to it and get a copy of it, and that's what I did. So for the last half hour of this show this evening, I will be playing that tape. It'll be audio, and I will put up some clips on the chart so you can follow what they're saying, because some of it's a little hard to understand. They move so fast. They make some of these decisions here in 10 to 15 seconds, so they move real quick when they get going. All right, so as far as their agenda is concerned, first their councilmen. If you can flip to the stand now. Their mayor is Mayor Bingham. He's a Republican chairman. He can vote in the case of a tie. So that means he has some legislative power that our town manager doesn't have. So he chairs this meeting, and he can vote in case of a tie. Then there's Councilman Della Valle, who's a Republican. There's Councilman Colangelo, who's a Democrat. Councilman Carbone, who's a Republican. Councilman Jerem, who's a Republican. Councilman Soliani, who's was a couple years off from me in school, in high school, is a Democrat. Councilman Waldron, a Republican. And the city attorney, who's a full-time employee, I'm pretty sure, of the town, is present for the whole meeting. And the town clerk is there as well. He prepares the agenda, and he also records the meeting and participates when they have a question for him. All right. So the next thing I want to do is go over the agenda. The first part of the agenda. And I want to show you the structure of this agenda, and that's all I really want to get across in the first 15 minutes. I might not get through the whole agenda, because I blew it up into large type so you can read it at home. But the first, sorry about that, put up the wrong one. Okay, the first item on the agenda was a vote. Note that word, vote, results orientated. Vote to accept minutes of the regular meeting held January 22nd, 2008. We do that in our selected meeting as well. Vote to open the meeting to the public. They actually vote, and you'll hear this on the tape, to open the meeting to the public at the beginning of each meeting. I only went to one meeting. I don't know if they ever vote not to open it up, but this particular meeting, they did vote to open it up. Number 3, update on the revaluation by the tax assessor. That lasted about 10 minutes, Donna Patchen. The next was a vote to accept the purchasing agent's recommendation to waive the bid process for purchasing things, and I won't go through the whole thing with you, but they want to install a fence on their dog park down there in Torrington, so they voted to accept that. But notice how they spell it out, the whole motion, right in their agenda. Now, they also talk about this motion before the meeting amongst themselves, where legal, and they talk to everybody about it, and they get a pretty well a consensus, and when they come to the meeting, they don't have much discussion, because they've already done that outside the meeting. And in their form of government, it may be more practical to do that, I don't know. But they do it, and therefore, when they get to the meeting, they already have the thing all laid out for them, and all they have to do is vote on it. Number 5, vote to accept the purchasing agent's recommendation to extend the electrical services for Kennedy Electrical Contractors for an additional 1-year period at the same rate and conditions as exist today. The next one is the vote to accept the following recommendations from the Services for the Elderly Commission. And then to adopt the resolution. There are 4 parts to this one, A, B, C, and D. A is to adopt the resolution authorizing the mayor to enter into and amend contractual instruments on behalf of the city of Torrington with the Department of Social Services for the home management grant, contract such and such, for the period covering so-and-so for that amount of money, all right? So it's right here in the minutes, and then grant acceptances and approvals and the certification regarding support and non-discrimination. And then C is to adopt a resolution authorizing the mayor to sign and enter into another agreement with a CONDOT for the purchase of a new van under Section 5310 of the program. And then D is to authorize the mayor to sign the non-discrimination agreements and warranties required under Connecticut statutes for the CONDOT agreement, and that's the number of the agreement. Number 7, vote to accept the city clerk's recommendation to authorize a transfer of $25,000 for contingency to the election budget to cover the primaries on February 5th, which is now passed, 2008, and refer it to the Board of Finance. Number 8, vote to authorize the payment of $11,250 from the Small Cities Fund, number 279. See the amount of detail they have here. It doesn't have to be discussed. The motion doesn't have to be argued about in the meeting. It's all laid out here by the city clerk for them, so that when they get to the meeting, they know exactly what they're going to be doing. To the L. Wagner and Associates for professional services rendered from this date to that date, to the neighborhood sidewalks and pedestrian safety project, payment to be processed upon receipt of funds from drawdown number 7. Number 9, vote to authorize the payment of $16,710 from Small Cities Fund number 250 to L. Wagner and Associates for professional services rendered from this date to that date in regard to the town's housing rehabilitation program. There it is right there. And then number 10, vote to consider business in Section B. Now the business in Section B is things that were raised up after they put together the agenda. It's sort of like Johnny-come-lately, last-minute additions to the agenda. They do get them in there before the meeting. They do put the motions on there, but it hasn't had the same amount of time with the councilman as the Section A. So anyway, Section B, number 11, vote to accept the building department report for January 2008. Number 12, vote to accept the recommendation from the Services for the Elderly Commission to appoint Doris Richards as an alternate to fill in a vacancy on the Services for the Elderly Commission for a term to expire in 2009. Now, when they had the meeting, and you'll see when you listen to the tape, they moved this up further on, closer on the agenda at the beginning, so Doris Richards wouldn't have to sit through the whole meeting to hear the results. So they moved that up, and there was a motion to do that, you'll see, and then they took care of that earlier in the meeting. And then there's number 13, which is recommendation from the Small Cities Subcommittee. And this doesn't have a motion attached to it, probably because it came in too late for that, so when you see the meeting, and I'll go through it with you while you're listening to it. I'll have the slides up for you to see. They did come up with a motion there, and then they voted on that motion. Okay, and then 14 is vote to open the meeting to the public for agenda items only. At the end of their meeting, they open it to the public once again for agenda items only. So if you didn't get a chance to talk at the beginning of the meeting, or they came up with something during the meeting that you want to comment on, then they will vote here, and in this particular meeting, they voted both times to open it to the public. In this particular case, there was nobody who spoke up. In the first case, there was about 5 minutes or so, 5 or 6 minutes of public comment. Number 15, vote to consider the business presented by department heads. So they make a round of all the councilmen and say, does anybody have any new business? And you'll see something. I don't think anything popped up in this particular meeting on that. And number 16, vote to consider business presented by the mayor and members of the city council. There were some comments on that, and that lasted for about 10 minutes because they were raising a resolution to go to the state that they wanted the mayor to bring to the state to see about tax, that when you overpay your tax, the state would automatically have to let you know you overpaid. It wouldn't be if this resolution passes once it gets to the state, presented by the mayor, then they would have to tell you when you overpaid. Most people don't know they overpaid. You'll hear that mentioned on the tape because they think they paid properly. So it's, again, it would be up to the state if the resolution passes to let you know and send you a check back. So that's one of the things that Torrington's trying to do. By the way, they do that in Torrington. I think they have an ordinance or a resolution down in Torrington that if they find somebody's overpaid erroneously, they will let that person know, and then it'll be resolved. Then, so there were some comments on that, and after that there was a vote to adjourn, and that vote to adjourn took about 10 to 15 seconds, like most of the other votes they took down. You can be really impressed when you see that, when you listen to this tape. I'd advise you all to listen to this tape. I wish I had a videotape, but I don't. I was really overwhelmed by the efficiency, the professionalism, the camaraderie, the teamwork, the positive attitude of everybody. And this meeting is surely an example. I've been talking on this program forever about the efficiency of running meetings and how you can run meetings more efficiently. Most people turns a deaf ear to it, but basically this is an example of how it can be done if well organized and if you have the form of government that allows you to. Now, I'm not saying their form of government is better than ours. Maybe we can do all this within our form of government, but that's something that the selectmen need to look at. In my view, is the more you can push to the town manager and get him involved outside the meetings, coming together with all this information, much like the city clerk has done here, and the managers and councilmen and city managers have done down in Torrington, be prepared for the meeting. Now, guess how long this meeting lasted? This meeting lasted a half an hour. And I don't know exactly how many, but I think the public comments was about 4 minutes, very positive. And the one discussion they did have was about 10 minutes, and then they had a presentation by the tax assessor because they're doing a reval down there. That lasted 6 minutes. So the whole meeting, you know, if you take out a couple of those things, it was 10 or 15 minutes. And boy, you can tell when you listen to this tape. So I advise you to stick with it tonight. It's a little hard. I took it off of an audio tape. It's not perfect, but we're going to play it for you, and I want you to pay attention. Now, when we were doing the bond issue, I did point out to you early warning signs, and I had about 24 of them there that we were going to have problems with that bond issue. And most of them turned out to be fairly accurate. It's still, the jury's still out on some of them. But now, when I was troubleshooting around the world, I could ask 5 questions anywhere I went in the world, and I could get a pretty good idea of how well things were going or what the problems might be or where to go look for the problems, who to talk to. And when I went to Torrington to this meeting, I could see just from the agenda that they had their act together down there, right? And I'm sure they got problems just like any other organization, any other bureaucracy, but sure isn't in running one of these meetings. Now, and the way they prepare for these meetings and the way they conduct themselves during this meeting. So, and then they're from both political parties here. So they don't have 4 political parties like we had last time. They only have 2 political parties. But the last time that Bingham was mayor, they had 3 Democrats and 3 Republicans in the council seats, and then he had a vote in case of a tie. This time there are 4 Republicans and 2 Democrats in the council seats. And one of the things that Mr. Bingham did do down there was to keep the taxes under control. So there are some lessons to be learned, perhaps. They do have a different set of demographics than we do, and everybody has to remember that. They're not the same as us. They're 3 times the size in some respects, not so much in other respects. But it's a different form of government, and I'm just trying to present facts to you so you can make up your own mind should this ever come to referendum. And I will be showing you other meetings from Torrington as well, hopefully some video ones, so that you can compare the 2 forms of government yourself. You can see all our stuff on our TV, channel 13 and 15, so I don't need to do any of that. But I will do as much as I can to get as many of the Torrington meetings displayed to you up here so you can see for yourself. No comment from me, just the meetings, okay? So I will now say to you that when I saw the agenda and I saw that they had all of the motions written on the agenda, and they were in very fine detail by the city clerk, after contacting all the department heads and getting them all on there and resolving any differences before the meeting, so that they could get on with it during the meeting and make some decisions. See, these meetings aren't supposed to be for discussion. They're supposed to be for decision making. All the discussion should happen outside the meeting as long as it's legal to do so. Certain things you probably can't do outside the meeting. That's okay, but I can't imagine there would be too many of those. So it can be done. So I think what we'll do now is start to run the videotape, the audio tape. And when I run the audio tape, I'll probably be done a little early. If done a little early, I'll make some comments, but I do have to leave time for the ending and the trailer there. So if we can now start the audio tape and point to my first slide. While the audio tape is playing, I will just point with my pencil to each of the agenda items. You can see the first two agenda items here and public comment. You'll also see how long they lasted. This was vote to accept the previous meeting's minutes, 10 to 15 seconds. Vote to open the meeting to the public, 10 to 15 seconds. Public comment, 4 minutes. And there were 3 public comments, which I'll mention on here. Now, I can't hear this tape right now, so I can't tell exactly where we are on there.
Okay, you want to play it now?
Yeah, we need to play it now. Okay, all right. He didn't start it yet, so I will be hearing it, I hope.
Now open the City Council and WPCA. It's Monday, February 4th, 2008, 6:30 p.m. in the Council Chambers. 1, vote to accept the minutes of the regular meeting of January 22nd, 2008.
Move number 1, please, Mayor.
Council Chair. Second. Council Walter, second. Discussion. Hearing none. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstained? No abstention. Council College roll. 2, vote to open the meeting to the public. Councilor Del Valle, second. Councilor Walter, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? Is anybody from the public wishing to speak? Someone in the back.
Just wanted to let you all know that we did receive a local tax grant. And right now we have $11,500 for the period of January 1st to June 30th. And this will be used to build a plan, a community plan that's a more holistic approach for children. Not just education, we'll go over social, emotional, physical health, family support. Bridgeport and Hartford have one similar to this, so we're very excited. We also have anticipated $31,000 for the fiscal year of 08 to June of 9. So I do have a copy of it for you to pass on and give you a little bit more information on that. We'll be working on that in the next 18 months. There's one other item. Most of that grant is going to be going towards hiring a consultant to lead us through the planning process. And one of our items in our action plan is to look for sustainability for the future. So we also have built in trying to figure out a diversified portfolio. And we requested $5,000 from the city of Torrington for the fiscal year of 08 and 09. So I have a copy of that letter also. So just to pass around. And it just kind of highlights what we've done over the past 6 years. So hopefully we'll be working on more towards the future. So thank you.
I just have one thing, folks, if I may. Would you tell the council and the mayor about the money, the grant, what the other money is used for in the Northwestern thing? I'm not sure they're aware of that.
Fantastic. And Carla Woodworth is actually a student of this course that was basically geared towards civic engagement and current leadership skills. And it's a pilot program. There were 10 Torrington residents that were sent, 10 Winsted residents sent, so it was a regional project that we worked on. And it's funded for the next 2 years at Northwestern Community College, so it will become institutionalized, and it will be something that will be offered in the future. So, and that's probably wants to say anything about it.
Actually, I've started the class. It's a wonderful class already, and also it is 3 college credits, and it does go towards a degree in political science or sociology.
Nice. Thank you.
Thank you.
I just want to talk about a nice, Donna, I want to talk about a nice thing Mayor Bingham did on Saturday with Chief John Fields, Dennis Tanner, and Steve Mazzara. Well, for Penguin Plunge, and the total they raised, well, not just him, but the whole group raised $85,000 for Special Olympics, so I publicly wanted to thank him and the team.
Thank you very much.
And he looked real good in his wig.
Tried to go incognito. Didn't work. No, yeah. Didn't go back and get it. Is there anybody else in the public? Charles.
I'm Charles Shaw. I'm here to get a requirement for Boy Scouts, the Merit Badge Communications and Citizenship Community.
Good luck with that. Thank you. Anybody else from the public wishing to speak? Hearing and seeing none. Update on number 3, please, Mayor. Council Jerem.
Second.
Council Colangelo. Floor is yours, Donna.
Well, I probably should ask if you all have any questions, because right now, I don't have a lot to report to read out. We're still in the process of, obviously, early stages of data collection. I just had a meeting with the group supervisor this morning. As a matter of fact, we're just trying to iron out now, do we want to start sending letters out at this point to set up appointments and get a jump start on that, as opposed to waiting until the end of the summer to do that. Their target goal right now is, via the contract, I had requested that they have the data collection and values to me by the end of September. As it stands right now, this morning, they said they're shooting for the end of August. So it's been very smooth. We've had great response from the public. The taxpayers have been great as far as accepting, having someone tromp around their property and take the measures. We've had quite a few calls of concern about people missing the data collectors when they come, which has not been so in the past. So I think people are finally probably becoming a little bit more educated on the process and, how important it is to them to have the data collectors gain entry to the property. So that's really where we are right now. They're running at about 24% of the data collection, which is pretty good at this point, considering winter weather. So basically that's where we're at as far as the meeting today. So if you all have any more specific questions.
I just have one, if I may, please. How often are you inputting?
They have not started data collection yet. They're getting ready. As a matter of fact, we met with Jerry Roulette this morning to discuss the space that they are currently using in the old comptroller's office. So they wanted to know if they could have 2 joint offices. And we checked with Jerry to make sure that at this moment that was okay. And what they're going to do is, over the next week or so, they're going to be bringing in anywhere. There's going to be a total of 5 or 6 persons in there the majority of the time. We've got 4 people doing residential, 1 doing industrial, and 1 doing commercial. And what they'll be doing is they may be in and out. They're going to start bringing in data entry people. I think they're going to start with probably 2 persons, and that's going to be within the next week or so. We had to meet with Rudy Polano just to make sure that wiring and things of that nature in the offices would accept their equipment. So it's like everything this week is going to really get moving.
Is there a plan to input though? I mean, like a certain percentage at a time as opposed to
There will
waiting
be,
until
once they
August?
get going, and they're at that point now, and what happens is once they start entering the data, we will, at random, we spoke this morning about how they want to set up the files so that I can periodically go down, we'll pull so many cards on each street, and we will keep on top of that as they're entering the data. I spoke with the project director this morning to ask him formats. They give you, I didn't want the current field assessment cards to change that drastically. And they have given me a few options so that we can basically customize it more so to what Torrington is used to, what we've had, what the public is used to, the appraisers. I said it's really kind of difficult to keep throwing something new with them. So they've been very good in working with me as far as that goes and allowing me to design something that's closely related to what we already have, as well as the terminology that they will be using to input. There's they have, like, we may have 1.25 stories. They call it a 1.4, but I just met with them today to see if possibly we can keep that terminology the same. So they're going to see what they can do about that.
Just one last question, if I may, I'm sorry. The new software, and they're inputting the data, will that relieve you of the extra burden that a reevaluation would normally have put on you prior to this year?
It's going to create more, actually, because we're converting to a brand new CAMA system, which is the computer-assisted mass appraisal system. We're going to be leaving Vision, and we've contracted to have Total Valuation Services, which is a whole new software package. They are a seamless integration with the quality data administrative package that we just purchased, and we're ironing out a few bugs on that. What will happen is they're going to install it on my desktop this month, the CAMA system, so that at least I can start familiarizing myself with it and track their data entry via that way. But it's going to get a little hairy because simultaneously we have to keep up the Vision system, which is Connecticut statute requires us to, until I sign off on the 2008 grand list, which will be in February of '09. So it'll get a little hairy, but you do what you got to do.
Yes.
When do you anticipate sending out the notices to the homeowners of the revaluation?
The notices
Of their new values?
that will be in the fall. Those will go out around October or November of this year. The hearings will be through the month of the end of November and into December. So those will, yeah. I'm hoping the very beginning of November is when we get them out.
Okay.
The sooner the better.
Any further questions? Thank you. Thank you, Don. Moving along, 4, vote to accept the purchasing agent's
Move number
recommendation.
4, please, Mayor.
Councilor Jarrett. Second. Councilor Della Valle. Discussion. Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. 5, vote to accept
Number 5, please.
Councilor Della Valle. Councilor Carbone. Discussion. Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. 6, vote to accept the following recommendations from the services.
I'll move. Do you want to do all 4 at once?
I think that would
Okay.
be all right.
6, A, B, C, and D.
Councilor Jarrett?
Second.
By Councilor Soliani. Discussion. Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
I would ask that we move agenda item number 12 to the next spot, please.
Yeah, open section, approve section B. Is there a motion to consider section B? That's
Move
number
number
10.
10, please, Mayor.
Second. Councilor Jarrett, second by Councilor Della Valle. All in favor?
Aye.
We're going with 12 then.
Move number 12, Mayor. Oh, move number 12.
That's fine, yeah, we just wanted to move it up on the agenda, that's fine. Second.
Councilor Jarrett, second by Councilor Della Valle. And discussion? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
That way the director can leave instead of waiting till the end of the meeting to get to the next agenda item.
She was answered.
While we're here, do we want to take care of all the businesses that's in there?
Well, I mean, it's not, let's go back to 7 so we can keep on going.
Thank you.
7, vote to accept the city clerk's recommendation.
Number 7, please.
Councilor Delaval.
Second.
Councilor Carbone, discussion. Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. 8, vote to authorize the payment of...
Move 8, please, Mayor.
Councilor Jarrett.
Second.
Councilor Colangelo, discussion. Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
Move number 9.
Councilor Solly, what was that? Councilor Delaval, seconds. Discussion. Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? We're in section B11. Vote to accept the building department.
Number 11, please.
Councilor Delaval.
Second.
Councilor Carbone, discussion. Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? 13, recommendation from the Small Cities Subcommittee. Councilor Waldron.
Second.
Councilor Solly. Councilor Waldron. Anything to report?
Well, this is previous decision we made. Because of the high risk, we turned it down, but because there's extreme hardship with children involved, we reversed that decision. Agreed with the application.
Is that in the form of a motion?
Make a motion that the council approve project number 143-263, submitted request.
Second.
Motion made by Councilor Waldron, second by Councilor Solly. Is there discussion? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Anything further? Thank you. 14, vote to...
Move 14, man.
Councilor Jarrett. Councilor Colangelo. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Is there anybody from the public wishing to speak on agenda items only? Hearing, seeing none. 15, vote to consider business.
Number 15, please.
Councilor Delaval.
Second.
Councilor Colangelo. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Penny? Joe?
No, I just have an update that the InfoFood Solution Company, who's a new land record software and hardware company, for the new council people, will be here Thursday to go over all of the websites and evaluate and all the vital statistics to see if the reports match up to what we need for the state and for us. And the land record module is done, but they want to get everything down to us at one time, so they're coming down so we could observe if it's what we need for the other modules. And they will be supplying all the hardware and all the software for the price that the council voted on, the past council voted on, so hopefully we'll be up and running by March 1 and everything. It's a little late, but we're having some difficulty with the sports license monitor, or the vital statistics monitor, I think. So if they were here Thursday to show us, help us.
Do you have a time and are you inviting the
They
council?
said it would be between 10 and 30.
Is this a presentation?
Well, I think they're gonna hook it up downstairs, but if you want, last time we had it here, if you recall, if they bring this stuff and we want to bring it up here, we can bring it up here for people that want to come and look at it. I can let you know, I can email you all tomorrow or Wednesday, maybe Wednesday morning, I think. I'll get a hold of them and see if after they show us on our system, our desktops, maybe we'll just come up here with a demonstration for everybody.
What day is it? On Thursday, you said?
Thursday. There's no bugs.
Thank you. Ernest?
Nothing, thank you.
16, vote to consider business presented by number 16, please. Councilor Delaval, second by Councilor Waldron. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Councilor Carbone? Councilor Colangelo? Councilor Della Valle.
A couple of things, if I may, Mayor. First of all, I'd like to recognize our guest from Winsted, the young gentleman over here from the Charter Revision Commission in Winsted. Welcome to our humble abode. Secondly, I'd like to add something to the agenda by two-thirds vote, if you could. That would be a resolution asking for a signature to allow the mayor to sign a resolution to be sent to state legislators to make an amendment to state statute section 12-129. You should have all received a copy of the statute. And if I may, I have a copy of a resolution.
Do you want to add it by two-thirds and then we'll pass it along?
Okay, sure. So that would be my request to make a motion to add by two-thirds.
Is there a second to that? Second. Councilor Colangelo. Discussion on the motion. Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
All right, we're going to pass the resolution.
Excess payments by taxpayers to the tax collector's office and throughout the state, and would be requesting to add a line in there saying that it would be required by all tax collectors in the state of Connecticut to notify taxpayers that they've made an overpayment in order for them to get a refund of the monies that they would be owed, that they've actually overpaid. So it's really their money. And we're just asking that the statute be changed to allow them to be notified by the offices that they've actually made the overpayment, so that they'll have a better chance of recouping the monies that were overpaid.
I mean, this is just a carry-on of the conversations that we've had this summer and previous to that about notifying some of the overpayments that we've had in Torrington. Our tax
we're doing it here now based on the mayor's agreement with the tax collector, but this would be a statewide statute change which would benefit every taxpayer in the state of Connecticut. And I did have a discussion with Senator Rohrbach, and he suggested that this is the best way to bring it forward with a resolution from the council in order for him to bring it up to try to get.
At what point do we notify them if there's an overpayment? I know
when they make it.
Okay, well, I understand that, but I think some of the confusion that there's been is explained from our tax collector is that sometimes you have overpayments made by a bank to the city, and the taxpayer may not be entitled to that overpayment.
Right, but the money would go back to the bank. It would go back to whoever overpaid. Whenever a payment is recorded into a computer in any collector's office in the state, it automatically brings up a screen of that person's business of what they've already paid or not paid. So it would red flag it immediately, saying that this has already been paid. It's not a payment we should be accepting. And then at that point, the notification will be made that there was an overpayment, regardless if it's a bank, a mortgage company, a motor vehicle leasing company, whoever, or a taxpayer.
And my only concern is, and I understand the need for people to be notified, but the issue, I think, if I recall properly, when our tax collector was here, is that sometimes he's withholding the payment just to flush out who's entitled to receive the overpayment in return.
No, which is all well and good, but the purpose of the resolution is that the taxpayer will be notified, whereas the state statute currently reads, there's no language to address that. The language in the state statute is the person has to request the money back. And I don't know about you, but I certainly wouldn't overpay my taxes deliberately, so I wouldn't know I overpaid, and therefore not know I overpaid and be able to ask for it back.
Right, it doesn't have to necessarily, I don't think, happen immediately.
Oh, no, it doesn't have to be an immediate thing. It's have to be notified, and then it's up to them to come in and request it.
Right.
Still follow the state channels. Okay. So it's not an immediate back in the mail.
Just as long as it's a notification.
That's what I stated earlier. That it's, I don't think
an undue burden on a tax collector throughout the state.
It's clear in the resolution. It says that a notification, that the municipal tax collector to notify the taxpayers of a overpayment of an annual tax due. So that's all we're requesting is a notification of the overpayment.
So the responsibility would fall on the tax collector to determine who in fact overpaid.
That's correct.
Was like on one automobile and cars sold, one automobile with two owners, it would
Well,
go to the
actually,
taxpayer.
the assessor is really doing that part of it.
Is who?
Yeah, in motor vehicle sales and buying new cars and changing, and that's an assessor's position to do that. But if somehow the person had already paid taxes and something like that happened, then it would be the duty of the tax collector to notify the people that there was an overpayment. And that's all we're asking is, in my motion is to allow the mayor to sign the resolution to go to the state legislatures for at least some conversation on it, some dialogue, to see if it can be considered statewide, not just in the city of Torrington.
Did we make a motion on this, Julie?
Pardon me?
If we opened it up for...
Yes, we made a motion.
It's on by 2/3.
But we made a motion
Right, it's
also.
on the agenda. And we did.
We did, that's how that's going to hand it out the resolution after the motion got on.
No, we had it by 2/3. Then we got to make a motion to approve. We need a motion to approve.
Yes.
I did that already, didn't I?
No, you made a motion back to add by 2/3.
Okay, so once it was added, I handed it out, okay.
Yeah.
All right, so I make a motion to allow the mayor to sign a resolution to make an amendment to state statute section 12-129 regarding overpayments to taxpayers.
Motion made by Council Delavado, second by Councilor Waldron. Discussion.
I just want to be clear, so in your discussions with our tax collector, you directed him if someone is identified as making an overpayment, he will send notification to them.
We've asked that he do it 90 days prior to when he would typically be allowed by state statute to keep the money. So it would be 2 years and, well, anywhere between 2 years and 9 months from when they've originally overpaid, anywhere in between that time period. So 3 months before they actually don't have the right to receive that money back, he has agreed to send out notifications every year. So
When does that go into place?
that happened
It
last.
is already.
Yeah, like at
So
April.
this is silent on the time frame for that.
In the spring.
Yeah, this will be up to the individual tax collector. Well, the time frame is already outlined in the current state statute, so there's no need for us to make, all we're asking to do is add an amendment that allows the taxpayer to be notified. It doesn't change anything else in the statute. The statute already speaks to the time limits and what the procedure is from there. So no one's looking to change any of that. We're only looking for it to be amended to add the words that the taxpayer be notified of an overpayment.
I do have a couple of questions as I'm reading this, and I am reading the statute very quickly. So this seems to refer to a clerical error on the part of the assessor or board of assessment, as opposed to an error on the part of the taxpayer. So I just want to make sure that whatever we're requesting our legislative delegation to do clarifies, the difference between an error made by a taxpayer. I'm also concerned, as Councilman Jerem pointed out, that the timeline also be respected, because as I'm looking at this, it says there is a 3-year statute of limitations or a limitation period from the date which tax was due, in which the taxpayer can apply for a refund. So these are the kinds of things that I just want to make sure that and your resolution doesn't state, what the parameters are of the language.
Well, but we're not asking to see.
You're looking to have the mayor speak.
But first of all, I'll speak to your first question about the clerical error. It first states that anybody who overpays more than the rate was. Then it says, or by whom a clerical error was made. So the first paragraph, the beginning sentence, covers everybody. Yeah. It So that's, the next one is just another, just in case there was a clerical error.
And this request is simply to notify the taxpayers of that, and nothing to change existing state statute, but to put a line in
But
there.
the onus on the tax collector, that if he receives more than he's supposed to, he's supposed to notify.
In our opinion, as we've said multiple times, is the right thing to do to notify people of overpayments, because it's certainly, I mean, it's their money, and ultimately. Further discussion? Hearing none. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Anything further, Councilman?
Just the read aloud day on Wednesday. Encourage everyone to go in. Now, this will be my, I believe, 17th year. I've been doing it since its inception. It's a nice thing to go to schools and every single kid. So, I didn't look at the book. Hopefully this week I will. But for tomorrow, I'm not a shot. I think to read it before I get there on Wednesday morning. But I have a kindergarten class this year, so. I don't know what the name of it was, to be honest. They don't send it to you. You pick it up at your school, but you can go to the chamber and read it ahead of time. So it's a nice thing to do. It's just, I like it.
And to echo that,
Thank you.
if you can't go for whatever reason, work or whatever, the school system would gladly allow you to come in at any time and schedule time with kids. I was at Oval today and saw a former teacher who has since retired, who goes in every week and reads to kids, so I would encourage any part of that. Thanks, Council Delgado. Council Chairman.
What's the winter chili?
It wasn't as bad as last year because we had to prance around beforehand. They let us change, jump in, run back and change, so it was like a quick time.
I got a picture.
So prancing is not mandatory? No, not this year. Chris Parker in the back jumped last year, and you can probably speak to like the 20 minutes that you were standing in the cold fan. And this year was very much a better, more efficient type of meeting. That's all I have.
And the heater's available.
Yeah, well, eating that cold is not work.
I have nothing, thank you, Mayor, other than encourage everyone to vote for primary tomorrow.
Got it. Councilman Waldron. That's all I had was it's very important to get out and vote. It's going to be a big 2008 in terms of elections, historic on all ends. We should encourage people to be a part of it somehow. Motion to adjourn. Motion to adjourn. Councilman Mayoral. Councilman Waldron. All in favor? Aye.
Okay, you saw that. You didn't see it, you heard it, I saw it. It was quite an exciting meeting. I really tickled pink to go down there and can't wait for the next one. Now, I do want to say that I did a lot of talking to people during the week and after the meeting, and I do know some of them from my school days, although we weren't in the same class, we were pretty close. Number one, the meeting doesn't always last a half an hour. This was an exceptional meeting, I think. But I am told that the average is 45 minutes to an hour, maybe a little longer, because during the winter, they have to have the budget meetings, and just like we do, and they take a little longer, so that brings the average up. But the average for their meeting is much lower, I would say. I don't have exact statistics on the average for our meeting, but for ones I see, usually last 2 to 3 hours, and seldom do they last less than that. So I think it's a question of having their act together, everybody agreeing with each other, doing as much homework as possible. Now, I will say a couple of comments about the meeting. The meeting was excellent. When they opened it to the public at the beginning, it was very positive. There were a few references to our Winsted and to our college up here and courses that are being prepared. There was reference to the Winsted penguin plunge, mainly because the Ryan Bingham and 5 or 6 of his staff were in there and jumped in the water for the second year, at least the second year, maybe more, I don't know. And then there was a Boy Scout there trying to get a merit badge, and he made in a request that he was trying, attend the meetings, I guess, and to get. I did attend another meeting the other night where Councilman Siliani had her grandson there, and that made the newspapers. He was there, to get his little dose of public service and how the city of Torrington runs. Anyway. The other thing I'd like to say is one thing that took the most time, or two things. One thing that took the most time was Dollar Valley's tax resolution proposal to the state, and that really, as you can see here from the discussion on the audio tape, that really wasn't discussed that much outside the meeting, at least amongst 2 or 3 of the people. So maybe it came up later, but for one reason or another, they decided to have that in the new business sort of section where they did have some discussion, and as you could see there, that went on for about 10 minutes. It was very positive. Most of the people who are commenting were from the same political party. There doesn't seem to be, at least in that one meeting, and I will go to many more meetings and I will videotape the next one, but I have permission already to do that, so I'll be videotaping the next one. I don't know how long it's going to go on, but I'll be there, and I do want to get a feel over the next year, 6 months to a year, or whatever it takes, for their councilman meetings and for all their other meetings. Now, one thing I want to say to you is that I don't represent the Charter Revision Commission when I go. I just go as a person that's on the commission trying to understand their form of government. And I do share with them the papers I write so that they can correct any factual errors in them. So far I haven't received any factual error things, but I do correspond with by email with the city clerk, and he corrects me and points me in the right direction when I need more information. So I'm just looking for the facts. That's basically all I'm looking for. So I want to point that out to you, that I don't participate in these meetings. I just listen. I don't say a word at any of the meetings I go to, same as in Winsted. I never say anything at any of these meetings unless I have a specific point to make in the public comment, and when I do, public portion, and then I try to make it as short as I can and submit a paper with all the details that people can read outside the meeting. I once submitted a paper to the selectmen here, and one of the selectmen said, well, it's kind of hard to read. It's 8 pages long. So not many of my things are less than 8 pages. I do have a summary usually in the beginning of them, but there is some work required to read a lot of this paperwork, and evidently the councilmen down in Torrington do that because, as you can see from the meeting, they're very well organized. We are getting better, of course, since the election, and the more the activities that the town manager reviews, as I said last week, outside the meeting, and the better prepared he is for his section. My view of his section will eventually be, once he gets caught up and clears his desk a little and gets rid of some of the backlog of work, then he'll be able to just come in and give the bottom line for each of these things and won't have to have a lot of discussion. So once he's on top of it and people can trust him and know that he's doing a good job, then it'll be easier for everybody. I made one mistake with my pencil there. The Joe that was talking, that's Joe Cordero. He's the city clerk. I pointed to unfortunately, the lovely woman there, Mrs. Carbone. So that was a mistake for those who are watching at home. The presentation that was made, that was Joe Cordero talking about another important thing, that they're going to have a presentation outside of their meeting. He's going to bring in a bunch of people, and they're going to give a presentation to whoever wants to go to it outside of the councilman meeting. And that's what I've been trying to profess. Have as many of those presentations outside the councilman meeting as you can. And then people won't be posturing for the TV camera or the press. And that will help us. And by the way, the press, I think, is always invited to those meetings, so it's not a big problem. I think I've covered most of the points I want to make here. I have attended so far one selectman meeting, one Litchfield County Board of Elected Officials meeting, which was 2 hours and very interesting. Very interesting. Gives you a view of all the elected officials in our area here and how they think. I think the mayor goes to some of those meetings, and the past mayors have gone to those meetings, and maybe even town manager eventually will go to some of those meetings. I don't know, but it's basically for elected officials and of all sizes of towns and cities that are in our area, the Litchfield County area. And then I've been to 2 charter revision commission meetings only as an observer, and that's how they know me down there. And I do want to say that any participant I do in any of those meetings, I do not represent the commission, only myself. And a lot of people ask me, Brian, why do you keep repeating things on TV all the time? I have to repeat because people always ask me these questions and they misunderstand. So I want to make sure there's no reason to misunderstand any of this. And then the last thing I want to say is that the meeting I attended a couple nights ago was the public hearing for their Charter Revision Commission. And I do have a copy of all their questions and concerns. They have not been given any direction by the councilman. They've just been told to review the charter, get input from the people in the town, and then make any changes or suggest any changes they think might be interesting. So with that, I'll say it's past my bedtime. I've got a little cold in the last few days, so I'll be going home to bed early again. And thank you for watching.